Good to see everybody tonight at the Buddhist Society's basic meditation class. We've just been told we're being recorded, and that means the camera's not on you. Well, the bad news is it's on me, I guess, and the Buddha image. That's not bad news. And everybody is muted. And when we do get to questions and answers, or questions at any rate, questions and discussion, and you're unmuted, if you want to avoid being recorded, please just send something through in a chat box, which I've now activated the chat box on my screen, so you can be completely anonymous and invisible if that makes you happy. So I suspect a few more people may be coming in. So just get settled. And just, if you haven't already done it, just check out where you are, your environment. Everything's all right. Familiar with it. Nothing that's going to grab our attention particularly during the next few minutes together. And gradually ease into, that's a good way of looking at it, ease into this practice. Yeah. So it's sort of, I'm looking around the place here, listening out for any sounds, making sure I'm reasonably comfortable. Just check out how we feel. And it's quite okay during a bit of a sit, if we discover the posture isn't quite what we'd like it to be. You can have a little wriggle, adjust the posture. I mean, even stand up. That's quite okay. But then again, take the opportunity of a bit of discomfort, if that comes your way, just to investigate how we react to it. Actually, nobody welcomes it. It's an unpleasant feeling, probably not a particularly, commanding unpleasant feeling. Just notice that, and it's quite okay, as I say, to carefully adjust our posture. But like do it more deliberately rather than just a reflex. That's more mindful. Just a lot of this mindfulness practice, as you probably realize if you're kind of old timers on this, a lot of this mindfulness practice is just being aware of our habits. I don't mean I'm a habitual chocolate eater or something like that, but more like our habitual responses to an itch, for example. These little things, and it's quite good just to play with those habits and see if we follow them. And a lot of these habits they're not killers, are they? But it's just interesting to take an opportunity to learn about how we're conditioned by our habits, and how in a way we don't have to be. It's as simple as that. If we're happy, habitual people, so be it. But I mean, maybe we're not happy about our habits, and I mean our underlying tendencies. As I say, the superficial habit, they got to have a bit of chocolate thing. That's superficial, and we can play with not having a piece of chocolate, and that might lead to learning a bit about more fundamental habits in our makeup. So there we go. And we're sitting here. We've all got some sort of intention. I hope we haven't got any particular, goal. No target. Meditation practice isn't like that. Just the doing it is enough, So I'm going to set meditation tonight. That's it. And you don't know what's going to happen. Well, I don't. I certainly don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I have a few guidelines. I know the class is going to end at about 8 o'clock. If everybody disappears beforehand, it will end before then. And I sort of, the usual format is what it is. We'll sit, bit of guidance, take a little break. I might say something useful, sit a bit longer, have some questions and discussion. So, I mean, that's kind of a basic framework. I'm working to. Nothing more than that. So we have an intention just to sit meditation together. And a good attitude is one of a curiosity, one of curiosity. It's like, so what's this then? What's all this about? That sort of attitude. Let's have a look at this. So, if we're sitting here now and we find we're feeling a bit tired, and why not? Oh, that's interesting. What's meditation like when we're feeling tired? Or what's tiredness like when we're being mindful? It's a project like that. It's like, what's it like? And the reply, and I keep on putting this little strap line up on the flyer when the ad goes out for this class. It's like this. Mindfulness, it's like this. It's whatever. People say, what is mindfulness all about? It's about seeing things as they are right now, like this. These qualities of the Buddha Dharma, the Buddhist Dharma teachings, whatever you want to call it, it's immediacy. It's here and nowness. It's like, right now, what's it like? Answer, it's like this. As it, there's no more mystical or magical than like that. So when we practice meditation, we call it mindfulness, it's just we're seeing things. It's like this. We ask the question, what's all this about? The answer is, it's like this. However it is. We just look at it, don't attach to it. And then what next? That sort of attitude. So good attitude, but gentle curiosity. Gentle curiosity. And we note, any tendency in the mind to enthusiasm, nothing wrong with that. That's interesting. Okay. What else? Or any kind of, resistance. Oh, I'm doing it, but maybe it's all a big mistake. We notice that. This is a noticing practice. Without any judgment at all. No judgment at all. So we're going to sit in meditation. I'll say a bit about mindfulness practice. Maybe using a sort of a stabilizer or an anchor as the sort of focus of our practice. And that's it. But let me also guarantee some other things that are going to be happening when we sit meditation, because we're living beings and we're alive and all of that, and our senses are going to be operating. If we open our eyes, we're going to see things. If there's a sound out there, we're going to hear things. And if you've lit some incense, you're going to smell it. And if you've just put on a cough sweet or had that bite of chocolate, there's probably a residual taste in the mouth. And there are going to be physical sensations. And there's going to be thinking. There's going to be thinking, all the emotional, all the head stuff, that's going to be going on as well. That's going to happen. I doubt if anybody's going to blank out or anything like that. And so that's the material we're going to work with. It's sort of basic humanity. Anyway, let's get down to a bit more formal work. Posture. Well, my keywords, when I'm talking about what this meditation is all about, it's about noticing, seeing what's right in front of us, essentially. Noticing things, seeing things, but not attaching to things. The big no-no in Buddhist practice is attachment. Because attachment is essentially habit formation, isn't it, really? So the practice is one of noticing but not attaching, noticing and letting go, noticing and letting go. So not attaching to stuff. And the posture is supportive of that, in my opinion. Right? So to be able to notice things, we have to be alert. So I guess we're all sitting in a upright or semi-upright posture, or standing. Right? So an upright posture, a stable posture. But also, I suggest a relaxed posture as well. This is a balancing act, isn't it? Alert, relaxed. The relaxed bit, of course, helps the letting go. That's like physically grabbing onto something. You can imagine clenching your fist, hanging onto something, or just letting go, just relaxing, which is not rejecting or anything like that. It's letting go. It's relaxing. Alert, relaxed posture. That's it. And then there's all the bits and pieces alongside it, optional extras. Where do I put my hands? I've got mine on a cushion on my lap. You can put yours in your pocket, like out of the way. And there again, we can be aware of any tendency to move. It's just stabilizing up, putting your hands, parking your hands. It's great because one's instinct is often to move one's hands, right? To fidget, to scratch an itch. Just notice that. And we don't actually have to do that. Notice, let go. See what I mean? Eyes, I suggest, I personally sit with my eyes closed, half closed. And then again, we can notice the tendency to look around the place. That's another, you just notice that impetus. It's another habit. Notice it, not to do it. Let go. The whole of this, time together, it can be viewed as being all about noticing and letting go, otherwise known as mindfulness. Alert, relaxed posture. The name of the game is noticing and letting go. So just notice how the body feels. And by that I mean sensations in the body. They're going to be feelings. Talk about the six senses in Buddhism. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, what they call feeling, right? And thinking. The feeling is all the sensations. We're all experiencing some sort of sensation right now. Sort of pressure of sitting on the chair, our back on whatever it's leaning on, warmth in the hands, or any tightness in the legs, feeling of breathing in the belly, shoulders. When you're coming in, I was sort of easing my shoulders, a bit of stiffness there. Forehead, are we trying too hard? Well, that's not necessary. No, not necessary. Jaw, lips are closed, lips are touching probably, but jaw is not clamped shut unless we want it to be. It's just noticing these things. Noticing but not obsessing about it, not attaching. When you notice sensations in the body, one could actually, I'm not encouraging this particularly, but you could spend the whole of this next 15 minutes or whatever just being aware of the changing nature of sensations. One moment there's something going on in the left foot, the next moment the warmth of the hands, the next moment the warmth of the room on the face, the next moment saliva in the mouth, ping, 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 ping. That's interesting, isn't it? Experiencing the body not as an opinion about it, but just raw sensations. That is quite interesting. I find that quite interesting. So how does the body feel? Is it just a mass of sensation? And many of them, I suggest, are probably nothing special, right? Some of them may be rather unpleasant. Well, it's quite okay to sort of adjust things a little bit. Say, particularly if we're sort of sitting on the floor, I can imagine a certain amount of discomfort. So notice sensations. Some of them can be pleasant sensations. The feeling of relaxing. God, that's good. Be aware of that. There's just massive sensations. Many, many just very neutral, uninteresting. Others, things we quite like, things we don't like. And just notice all of that stuff as well. Okay. And then attend to how the mind is feeling tonight. How's the mood? How's the mood? And this is the bit that people find a bit weird, It's like it doesn't matter what the mood is. So, if we're agitated, we can just explore being mindful of what it's like to be agitated. We're sort of coming here as a bit of a jitterbug, and we sit with that. God, look at all that energy, that sort of thing. We sit with it, notice it. And if we're feeling down in the dumps and a bit depressed, you just notice what that's like physically. What's that feel like physically? I could tell you, but I can find that out for myself. Just what's that like? And then if we're feeling, just at peace with the entire universe, just be aware of that. So just check the mood. And believe me, as is impermanent as anything else. So it's fascinating. You can make a little note. I started this period of meditation feeling like this. And at the end of it, maybe that the intensity of the mood is the same or not, or maybe it's changed, got more intense, gone away, and been replaced by another mood sort of tone. Interesting. So moods are, just as sensations in the body, are incredibly unstable and impermanent. And so is the mood often. It's the clouds are a little bit slower moving perhaps, but they move. Interesting. And then be aware of thinking. We all came to this class tonight having spent a lot of the day thinking about stuff. And just remind ourselves that that's what we've been doing. And we're aware of that. What's the point? What's the point? So the idea is to notice everything I've been saying so far, all the sensations and feelings, aware of our mood, the sort of general tone of the mind, and aware of the thoughts, but not attaching to any of it, noticing and letting go. Noticing and letting go. And that is so much easier said than done, as we all know. So that's why we have a meditation object. And there are many, many, like the feeling of the breath, or a mantra, or a mala beads, or the sound of silence, or whatever. And I really insist that if you've been working with a particular meditation object and you're quite happy and skilled and used to using it, keep on doing it. I shall refer to the breath as the meditation object. And it's just another feeling, by the way. It's noticing a feeling, and in particular the feeling of breathing. And in particular, I suggest the feeling of breathing at one particular point, the rise and fall of the belly, or around the nostrils, or anywhere else. We notice it. The ordinary breath. We're not controlling it in any way. We're not sort of analytically studying it. We're just being aware of it. We're not asking, why am I breathing deeply? We just notice we're breathing deeply. Why is it long? Why is it short? Who cares? We're just noticing that and letting go of it. Well, we're not letting go of it, actually. We're using it as a reference point or an anchor, because the mind, the attention will wander all over the place to a lot of thinking, of course. And the practice is to notice that. No judgment at all. There we go again, thinking. And as soon as we catch ourselves thinking, without any judgment at all, it's not that we should not think. It's like saying we shouldn't breathe, or the heart shouldn't beat. But that we notice it, and then redirect the attention back to the meditation object. Your meditation object, the breath, let's say. So we have a choice, you see. You notice what we're doing. We are sort of, in a very gentle, subtle way, taking charge a little bit, aren't we? We could get engrossed in thinking or this and that and the other, or if we don't want to, we can let go of it. And that's a real skill, I think. That requires a lot of practice. But that's what the meditation object, the breath, for example, is for. It's a little anchor that stops the mind the boat from wobbling off too far. So rest the attention on the breath. If it helps, take a few deep breaths just to find out where we're aware of the breathing, of the breath. And notice, like everything else in life, a breath begins and it ends, In fact, an in-breath begins, it ends, an out-breath begins, an out-breath ends. And we're not trying to grasp the breath. We're not trying to nail the attention to the breath. We're sustaining the attention on the breath by deliberately letting go of anything else. So there's a heck of a lot going on, all of it probably more intrinsically interesting than how the breath feels. But we let go of all these other intrusions, natural intrusions, natural places the monkey mind wants to swing to. We notice what's going on. There we go again, let go. Back to the feeling of the next in-breath or the next out-breath. It's quite helpful to deliberately pay a bit more attention to the breath. As I said earlier, it's sometimes long, short, deep, shallow. An in-breath begins, an in-breath ends. An out-breath begins, an out-breath ends. And sometimes the breath is pretty steady, other times it's a bit less regular. And in no way are we trying to control it, but we are just observing it. That's a physical sensation. And as we kind of get into it, maybe we appreciate that it's quite a peaceful meditation object. So peaceful that the risk is we might null off to sleep. It's very peaceful. Yeah, but it's not stimulating, so it is difficult, isn't it? There's so much else out there, which, to be honest, is in a conventional sense just more interesting. But the breath is really not stimulating at all. It's just tranquilizing, isn't it? It's peaceful, calming. I mean, unless we've got a cold or something, but on a good day, it's quite peaceful, tuning into the feeling of the breath. And as thoughts or anything else comes into consciousness, just notice this. Notice it. Notice any tendency to hang on to it, to develop it, for one thought to turn into another thought. Just notice that. And then quite deliberately, direct the attention back to the feeling of the breath. We have a choice. Take a little break if you need to. Stretch, wriggle. So in Buddhism, they talk about there are six senses, not five senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. Physically feeling things. That's sort of physicality, and there's thinking, and all that mental stuff. And thinking is, normally you think about five senses. In Buddhism, there are six: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, feeling, whatever you want to call that, and thinking. And in meditation, we're very aware of all six of them. We're sitting here, and the idea is to be mindful, and just there's the breath, which of course is a feeling sensation. It's a touching sensation, and that's supposed to be it. Well, that's a laugh, isn't it? Because we're aware, because we're alive, aware. We've got all these senses. We've got the capability to see, hear, smell, taste, etc., etc., etc. So we do. It's as simple as that. And the one that, in a way, bugs meditators most, and certainly the one that relative newcomers to meditation are most aware of, is thinking. It's like, I can't stop thinking. I can't stop thinking. Non-stop thinking. And it's like, well, so what? Is thinking a problem? That's a good question. To what extent is thinking a problem? I mean, we earn our living by thinking. You often, to a greater or lesser extent, most of the time thinking is pretty useful, actually. But then when we get to sit in meditation, thinking becomes a problem. And I wonder why. I mean, well, from a therapeutic point of view, don't forget this mindfulness thing we've been doing here at the Buddhist Society is both a therapeutic activity, if you want to call it that. It's also a spiritual one. From a therapeutic point of view, thinking can be a problem because we get entangled in thinking. Thoughts can, we can become entangled in thinking, one thought to another thought. And from a therapeutic point of view, supposing we're talking about anxiety or depression, thinking triggers off emotions, the physical sensations, and more thinking, we're sort of digging a bigger and bigger kind of hole for ourselves. So if only we could sort of break this habitual pattern of, in this case, negative thinking, gosh, it wouldn't be so bad, would it? So from a therapeutic point of view, learning to be able to let go of thinking, particularly the thoughts that seem to have trouble attached to them, would be very handy. From a spiritual point of view, it's like thinking can obscure the big picture. By that I mean the nature of the mind itself. It's like tonight I don't know, I've got the curtains drawn here. I went outside. Supposing I want to look up at the vastness of the universe, starry skies and all the rest of it. And if the sky's clear, great, fantastic. But if there's a bank of cloud, we often have weather here, don't we, where there's just grey. It's like a mood, isn't it? You can't penetrate it. What's beyond that? Don't know really. It's just grey. Or it's not one kind of grey thing, but there are lots of clouds scudding across the sky, some faster than others. It's like thinking, isn't it? What's the nature of the mind if it's obscured in this way, either by non-stop clouds coming and going, or by a mood? We don't know. It's a pity, really. Or it's like, we're all sitting in our room, I am, and I'm mainly aware of the contents of the room. So I've got a laptop in front of me, and there's my clock, and there are books and files there, and more books over there. and behind me is a little shrine. So I'm aware of the contents of the room, but what about the space of the room itself? I mean, none of this would be possible if the room was, well, the room was even smaller than it is, actually. Yeah, so it's quite natural to just to ignore the important bit of this room, which is spaciousness. It's really interesting, I find, when I've kind of gone into a room and cleared all the stuff out for whatever reason, the furniture out, you think, wow, this is different. Or my favorite analogy is like going to the movies. When we go to the movies, we want to watch the movie. We're not interested in the screen, but the screen makes it possible. You know, these are all analogies, which from a point of Buddhist practice, it's like, well, you know, maybe thinking can be a bit of a problem if it obscures the true nature of the mind. And of course, it's difficult to let go of thinking as well, to detach from it, just to let it go. And that's not at all the same thing as you know, me sitting here and saying, stop thinking. That is not what it's about at all. If the conditions are there to think, we think. It's like any other part of our physical anatomy. So it's not, that's not the way to do it. We don't try and suppress thoughts. I mean, just as we, from the point of view of this practice, it'd be nice not to link, not to attach to them. So we don't try and suppress them either. The practice is one of how we relate, really, to thinking. It's another part of our nature. It's how we relate to it that matters. And it's not a fault, really. You know, it's not a question of judging ourselves. It's not a question of repressing it. It's a question of learning to let go of it. It's as simple as that. People say, well, how do I stop thinking? Well, I don't try to stop thinking, but learn to let go of thinking, to just let go of it. Relax that, you know, relax that grip, that mental grip on the thought. And that's what we're doing tonight, actually. That's what this practice is all about. How do I stop thinking? Sort of shorthand for how do I let go of thinking and enjoy the peaceful expansiveness of the natural state of the mind. Learn to let go, beginning now. You know, notice the monkey mind has wandered, acknowledge that. There we go again. Deliberately let go, back to the breath. And that requires practice. It's a slog. It really is. I've just taken up again, you know, drawing. I'm going to a drawing class. You know, I like to go and, you know, draw a nice view of some trees or something. And the teacher's just given me some homework. And the homework is a picture of a guy's head and shoulders. And he just says, draw that left eye. You know, that's it. Draw that. And it's like, that's hard work. That really is hard work. And that's what this practice can be all about. Noticing, letting go, back to the breath. Repeatedly. Notice what's going on. And then enhancing this practice by being very aware of, in particular, the ending of a thought. You know, there might be a thought popping up, and then it's replaced by another. There's a gap, isn't there? And the great lie is we always think. It's not. That's not. It's more like, well, one thought's followed by another thought. Well, and just watch the ending of a thought, and not commenting on it because that's another thought. Just being aware of gaps in thinking, the beginning of the ending of one thought and the beginning of another thought. That's a nice little project, just to notice that. And then here's another little idea. It's like, instead of the monkey mind just thinking whatever it wants to do, why don't we give it something to think about? Deliberately thinking about something. And that's the practice. And so substituting some intentional, alternative, deliberate thought. And here's a good one, by the way. I mean, a mantra, obviously, but here's one that I strongly recommend, which is, in the next few minutes, if anybody wants to, you know, take a little break from compulsive, habitual thinking, metta practice. May I be well, may others be well. May I be well, may others be. We make the mistake of thinking that meditation is all about blanking out the thinking, you know, as if it, I don't even know whether that's desirable, right? But this is not what I'm talking about. It's instead of thinking what the little monkeys up here wants to think about, let's think about, may I be well, may others be well. And you see how clever this is. Most of my thinking is verbal. I guess most of your thinking is verbal as well. So choose a mantra, like, may I be well, may others be well. And just think that. And you notice it has these two benefits. First of all, it intercepts this pattern of compulsive, automatic, one thought leading to another thought. And secondly, if you're into this Buddhist practice, it generates goodwill in the heart. So we're using the thinking mind in this practice. We're using the thinking mind for beneficial purposes, to develop goodwill, but also to give us the skill to detach from being on autopilot, from auto thinking. So there's some suggestions, a question to, you can come up with others at question time. My suggestions are just do this practice. That's the first thing. Noticing and letting go. Back to their breath. Paying a bit more attention to the birth and death of a thought. In particular, the ending of a thought before another one kicks in. Just notice that. How interesting. It's curiosity, isn't it? And then think what you want to think. We choose the thinking. I choose, may I be well, may others be well. So there we go. Let's do some more meditation, and then we'll have time for a discussion. So back to basics. Set up the posture if you slumped a bit as I have. Set up the body. Check it out for physical sensations, feeling of sitting, feeling in the feet, the knees, breath in the belly, breath on the nostrils, hands touching something, shoulders. Have a quick glimpse at the mood, the mind. Pick up the meditation objects and either see what happens. Things come into the mind, a thought arises, you notice it, you let go of it, back to the breath. We're learning to detach, to let go. We're learning to non-attach. Noticing a thought, back to the breath. Noticing a thought in more detail. Its origin, it pops into the mind for whatever reason. It'll stick around for quite a while if we want it to. That might go. Back to the breath. Or let's think. May I be well. May others be well. A real heart practice which involves a thinking mind. May I be well. May others be well. And there's no space for any other verbal thought, is there? We do that. And we can link that to the breath as well. In breath. May I be well. Out breath. May others be well. In a few minutes, I'll sound the bell, and sensory activities will return to normal. Just be aware of that. So we'll open our eyes, seeing. And I always find it interesting just to be aware of the physical sensation of seeing. What's it like to feel the light striking the eye? There's hearing. I guarantee that because I'm going to ring the bell. Just notice the sound of the bell. And then smelling, tasting, and the physical sensations will be there, and the thinking. And so I'm sort of gradually returning, from this rather special time in which we're doing a formal practice back to sort of business as usual. But perhaps we're, bringing this mindful approach of noticing but not attaching too much to all of this, noticing and letting go, back to the everyday of our lives. So, could Wongdu unmute everybody so that if anybody wants to ask a question, please feel free to do so. And if anybody would instead rather send something through in chat, that's great too. I'll try and field whatever comes my way. Yes, one thing I should bring to your attention is like next week, Ajahn Barry Subhaddo will be coming to the class. He does this once a month from Spain, where he lives. So he's going to zoom in next week. So do please make sure to come along. He's a lot of experience, both in leading this particular class way back, and then being a senior member of the Buddhist Society Zen group, and after that becoming a monk in the Thai forest tradition under Ajahn Subhaddo. Now he's a layperson. So loads of experience there, and so that's next week. Any questions for discussion tonight about anything we might have said, thinking, anything like that, or on anything else? Please feel free. Either ask a question if you want to. So I hope Odin has unmuted everybody, right? Or through chat. Anybody want any clarification about anything tonight? I asked last week if anybody had got any sort of little themes or ideas that one could, I could, use when I sit here and take the class. Nothing's come my way yet, but feel free there again to make a suggestion. Well, I'm kind of hearing a noble silence. Nothing's come through by chat. So, while encouraging absolutely everybody to come along, aha, there is something come through by chat. Right. Gosh. Oh, right. Here it is. Gosh. Okay, fantastic. As a topic of interest, I would be interested to learn more about dependent origination. I've started to read about it, read about this, but I found it to be a challenging topic to understand and apply to everyday life. Wow. Okay. That's something I can develop a bit later on, but let me give you a taster. Dependent origination. Well, first of all, I'm not going to go into it in detail, so please look it up or whatever. But dependent origination is all about causes and conditions. In particular, it's all about how we create and reinforce a sense of self. It's all about habit formation. And it's a very useful structure, to sort of think about one's meditation. Roughly speaking, it goes something like this in outline. The way the mind works is there again. This is sort of Buddhism. It's like there is a virus in our system. We've got a sort of a cognitive virus in the way we function, and it's a virus called greed, hatred, and delusion. In other words, attaching to, that's the delusive bit, attaching to, taking personally, and recreating a sense of self around the things we like and the things we don't like at a very deep level. So we're talking subconscious, habitual traits, patterns of behavior, impulses, and all the rest of it. That's our setup, you see. But it doesn't deny that we can do something about this faulty programming. Neuroplasticity is all the rage these days. We can literally change our minds. And this is what we're doing in this meditation practice. So the story goes something like this, starting from a position in which we've got this virus in the way we see the world and respond to the world, the way in which we go through the six senses, see, smell, taste, touch, feel things, and sense, the way we selectively see, hear, smell, taste, and lock onto those things, and then react to them emotionally. We want more of what we like and less of what we don't like. and we kind of cling to it. You know, yeah, I've really got to have more, or I've got to get away from this person. These are habitual responses. We may or may not be aware of this, but it's like, you know, if one's naturally a shy type, and notice that's faulty conditioning. You know, we think we're rubbish, can't handle it, and then we're going to walk into a room full of strangers, and you just notice that hesitancy, you see. And maybe you don't walk in, maybe you walk away. And that just reinforces the habit. So we react to the things we experience through our senses in a particular way, a way of attachment or aversion. And we cling to, we cling to and plan to and act upon those those responses, those emotional responses, which are based upon previous cognitive errors, you know, of thinking that we are, of believing we are attached to, or forming a sense of self, which identifies with our greed and hatred, as it were. And then we act upon it, and we act out the habit, and that reinforces the habit. That's it in a nutshell. So the cycle continues. We keep on, you know, there's no escape. Or rather, there is an escape. That's the point. Unless we do something about it, here we are at the Buddhist Society's basic meditation class, doing something about it, whether we realize it or not. You know, we're breaking these links. So there are, in the dependent origination story, there are 12 links in this process. And what we're doing when we sit mindfulness, when we sit meditation, we observe these tendencies, these links, these habits, these subconscious habits become more obvious. Yeah, these subconscious habits become more obvious, and then we have a choice. You know, keep on ticking along, same old habits, or else let go back to the breath. That doesn't solve the problem overnight, but it loosens the strength, you know, of these links. There's a gradual process of, you know, unpicking all of this, of rewriting the program. The program is not set in stone. You know, it's quite deep rooted. It's not set in stone. And the process of liberation is seeing this this process, which we call dependent origination. Excuse me. And learning to let go of it bit by bit. And most obviously, just noticing, you know, liking and disliking things coming up in the mind and how we react to all of that, and learning perhaps to back off and bring the attention back to the meditation. Now that, in a nutshell, is my first cut, my first take on dependent origination, and how we can begin to apply it in everyday life. And the applying it to everyday life is like, yeah, well, please start with doing some meditation and learning what to do about it when you're just sitting in meditation, you know. And so that becomes like a positive habit, which with a bit of luck we can sort of carry around with us and use when circumstances arise. I mean, that's the start, okay. And I could, you know, I could take that as some kind of theme. You know, on future occasions when I'm looking after this class. That might be quite an interesting thing to do. But I mean, by the way, don't think for 1 minute that this is, you know, the questioner says, I found it to be a challenging topic. You know, darn right, actually, darn right. I mean, the Buddha said, you can go mad thinking about this. That's challenging, okay. So the question is not to think about it, you know, it's to practice it. And then you don't go mad. Maybe you get sane. Maybe we get sane after a while. I mean, the insanity, you know, from this perspective, the insanity is just repeating the same mistakes over and over again. You know, we're creatures of habit. We're on autopilot the whole time. You know, there again, bringing the therapeutic side of it. Cognitive behavioral, mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy is all about, you know, recognizing the way we're on autopilot the whole time. That's what dependent origination is all about. It's all about, you know, deeply rooted tendencies which mean that we act upon autopilot and we just keep on doing it. Okay. And in that sense, it's quite easy to understand. I mean, the minutiae of it, are quite difficult to sort of understand intellectually, but we can certainly observe them, I think. And of course, there's lots of sort of Pali terms and whatnot in there as well, which are not immediately helpful to the way we can understand it. But I mean, that's a helpful suggestion for me to say a bit about it, because it fits in very nicely with what I have in mind for like this class. So I mean, I get people. I'm assuming that people come, who are gung-ho Buddhists, as it were, and we're doing this because this is what gung-ho Buddhists do. But I'm also assuming that some people come to this because they've heard that more immediately, never mind the Buddhist bit, because they've heard that mindfulness can really help in their everyday lives. And everything, and the dependent origination thing, tells a story, I think, which is relevant to both meditators, the gung-ho Buddhists, right, and with our lofty, ambitions not to keep on being reborn, and the ordinary Joe Blow who thinks mindfulness can help with these problems I've got, because they wouldn't put it like this, but they don't want to be reborn as somebody, with these unhappy habits. So I'm all for this. I'm happy to go along with it. I thank you for suggesting it. Any other good ideas, please? Well. If not, it might be a good idea to go and have supper, possibly. So, unless something else pops up in the chat box, or anybody puts a head above the bunker and out of the bunker and asks a question, I don't see that happening. I want to repeat, do please come along next week when Ajahn Barry Subhaddo is sitting here. And in between times, be good, take care. Some thoughts of loving kindness to yourselves and all other sentient beings. And stay safe. See you next week. Bye-bye. Good night. Thanks for coming.